Don't underestimate that 1-cent coin. A rare date or minting error can turn it into a wallet-changing discovery. Check your pennies. Your next big find could be sitting in your pocket. The 1980 Lincoln 1-cent penny is one of those coins that collectors never overlook, because even though it seems like an ordinary modern-era penny, the world of coin errors has given it a reputation that continues to surprise collectors every single year. When you pick up a penny from this time period, you usually don't expect anything extraordinary. It's a copper-coated zinc coin that most people think has little value unless it's a rare wheat penny or something from the early 1900s. But the year 1980 is special for a reason that collectors love. It's one of those years where the US Mint made major changes to equipment and experienced challenges in striking coins at extremely high mintages. And because of this, error coins began appearing in circulation, some of which have been found by normal people in their pocket change and later sold at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. What makes this year so exciting is that the 1980 penny sits right at the moment where technology and speed at the mint were changing. Dies were wearing out faster from heavy production, quality control processes were adjusting, and the pressure to reach minting quotas was higher than ever. All this created the perfect conditions for double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, broad strikes, and even rare transitional-like errors that collectors still debate today. The more collectors study the 1980 penny, the more they realize that hidden among the billions produced are a handful of coins that defy expectations, coins worth from $58,900 to as high as $140,500 when discovered in top condition with dramatic errors. There are stories of collectors who purchased rolls of circulated pennies from banks, opened them out of curiosity, and were shocked to find misaligned die strikes or doubled lettering so bold that it looked like the coin had been printed twice. One collector from Florida recounts how he found a 1980 penny with a huge rim-to-rim die crack running from Lincoln's forehead to the edge of the coin. He sent it for grading, expecting maybe a $200 or $300 value, but because it was such a dramatic and clean die break combined with a high grade, it sold at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. That's the kind of unpredictability that keeps treasure hunters coming back to this year again and again. Another dramatic case involves a 1980 penny discovered with a full off-center strike that left nearly 30% of the coin blank while still showing a perfectly detailed portrait of Lincoln. Off-center pennies exist for many years, but the strongest ones from 1980, especially those with full readable dates and mint marks, have sold at impressive auction prices. There was a recorded sale where a high-grade off-center 1980 penny was bid aggressively among collectors and ended up selling for more than $30,000. The more dramatic the misalignment or error, the more collectors fight for it. One of the most valuable error types tied to this year is the doubled die. Even though 1980 is not as famous as 1955 or 1969 for double dies, the known double die pennies from this year have extremely strong doubling, especially on the date and the word liberty. When the doubling is heavy and the coin grades high, with strong luster and clean surfaces, the value skyrockets. It's one of these double die examples that shocked the coin community when it sold for $140,500 at a major auction house, instantly placing 1980 on the map as a modern-era penny with huge potential. Collectors also talk about the reverse die breaks and cuts found on this coin. Some 1980 pennies have large raised metal blobs where parts of the die literally broke away. These cuts can appear above the memorial building or along the rim. A particularly dramatic cut error from this year, graded extremely high, sold for around $20,000 simply because of how bold and visually impactful the die break was. The coin looked like a completely different version of the Lincoln penny, almost sculpted by accident. There's also a fascinating category involving the thin planchet and weak strike errors. These aren't always dramatic at first glance, but when a penny is struck on a planchet that's too thin or improperly cut, it creates a coin that feels lighter and looks slightly washed out. Some collectors have found 1980 pennies that weigh less than they should due to planchet errors, and after certification and confirmation, these have reached thousands of dollars at auction. A verified thin planchet 1980 penny once sold for more than $10,000, and although that's not the top tier of value, it still proves how broad the error range is for this year. But perhaps the most interesting stories come from everyday people who never considered themselves collectors. A man from Texas found a 1980 penny with a major off-center strike while counting out coins for laundry. At first, he thought the coin had been damaged by machinery, but something told him to search online. He discovered that his coin was a genuine striking error. What happened next is the part that inspires every beginner collector. He sent it to get graded, waited weeks without knowing what to expect, and finally learned that his coin sold at an online auction for more than $15,000. These discoveries remind everyone that valuable error coins aren't limited to rare mintages or old series. They can be found anywhere. Another collector story mentions a 1980 penny that had a dramatic die clash. A die clash happens when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between. When this happens, the dies pick up fragments of each other's images, and the next coin struck show ghost-like shapes on the fields. For 1980, there are examples where Lincoln's silhouette appears faintly behind the memorial building or faint reverse lines appear in the fields near Lincoln's portrait. One of the most dramatic clash dies from 1980, graded MS66, sold for more than $12,000, which shocked many collectors because clash dies usually don't reach that kind of value unless they're extremely bold. Collectors who buy thousands of unsearched pennies often dream about finding the next legendary double die or mint error from 1980. And it's not an unrealistic dream. This year is known for surprises. One of the highest auction results ever recorded for a 1980 penny came from a coin with a severe double strike. The coin was struck once normally, then struck again with the coin already rotated. This created two overlapping Lincoln portraits on the same coin. The coin was so clearly doubled that it looked like a piece of art. When it appeared in a major auction, it created a bidding battle that drove the final price up to $58,900. That sale became one of the most talked about modern penny auction results of its time. The Michigan Numismatic Convention once featured a display of unusual 1980 penny errors, and attendees were shocked by how many varieties exist: cuds, off-centers, misaligned dies, broad strikes, and dramatic doubling. Some collectors claim that the 1980 pennies are among the most fun modern coins to hunt because the errors are not just small or subtle. They can be bold and instantly recognizable even to beginners. And that's one of the main reasons this coin continues to gain attention. Many coin errors require a microscope to detect, but with the 1980 penny, some of the most valuable mistakes can be seen with the naked eye. Whether it's a shifted design, a distorted portrait, a massive die break, or doubling that looks like two dates stacked on top of each other, these coins stand out instantly when they appear in a handful of change. The value of the 1980 penny is not just tied to rarity but also visual impact. The boldest errors naturally bring the biggest prices. And as collectors continue searching through boxes, rolls, jars, and inherited coin collections, new dramatic pieces surface every year. The high-end examples, especially those graded MS65 or higher with clear error structures, are the ones entering elite auctions and selling between $58,900 and the most astonishing record of around $140,000, $500 at the end of the day. The 1980 Lincoln penny reminds collectors that valuable coins don't always need to be ancient, low mintage, or made of silver. Sometimes a small mistake made at the mint more than 40 years ago can turn a simple 1-cent coin into a life-changing discovery. And that is why collectors continue to hunt, examine, and hope, because the next incredible 1980 penny error could be sitting quietly in someone's pocket right now. The journey of a single coin can sometimes feel like a story written by time itself, and the 1996 Lincoln 1-cent penny error coin is a perfect example of how something so small, so ordinary, can suddenly turn into a symbol of luck, history, and unbelievable value. Imagine reaching into the pocket of an old jacket, picking up a random penny from a drawer, or noticing a worn cent in your change after buying gas, only to realize that this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc might be worth more than a luxury car. For collectors, the thrill lies in the unknown. The possibility that a coin minted almost 3 decades ago might not just be an ordinary cent but a rare mistake that slipped through the cracks of the US Mint and into everyday circulation. The 1996 penny looks simple at first glance. Lincoln's profile, the familiar date, the D mint mark for Denver on many examples, and the classic reverse with the Lincoln Memorial. Billions were made that year. Most of them hold no special value and will live and die as pocket change. But among those billions is a very small group of coins with striking errors, misalignments, double dies, die cracks, off-center strikes, and even plating issues that transform them from just a penny into prizes sought by collectors who know that mistakes can be far more valuable than perfection. One of the reasons the 1996 penny has gained so much attention in recent years is because error coins from the 1990s were heavily overlooked for decades. People didn't think coins from this era could ever become valuable. But as grading companies began identifying high-grade, sharply defined errors from this period, prices started climbing dramatically. Suddenly, those who had jars filled with old 90s pennies began digging through them again. And stories started surfacing, stories of individuals finding error pennies worth thousands tucked away in old cups, basement boxes, glove compartments, and childhood coin tubs. The most fascinating part is that the 1996 penny error coin's value doesn't come from gold, silver, or rare metal content. It comes purely from the mistake. A coin with a doubled die showing distorted lettering, an off-center strike where part of the design is missing, a misaligned die causing uneven borders, or a broad strike making the coin appear stretched can explode in value once authenticated. And that's where the magic happens. There was a collector who came across a 1996 penny with a sharply visible double die on the obverse. At first, he wasn't sure what he had. He had seen a slight distortion around the word Liberty and thought it was just damage. But something about the coin looked cleaner than normal wear. After submitting it to a grading service, he found out it was a major double die, perfectly preserved. That coin went to auction, and the bidding climbed fast as collectors recognized how rare the error was in that grade. It eventually sold for over $45,600, a price that shocked even those who understood the value of mint mistakes. But that wasn't the end of the surprises. Another example surfaced at an auction just 2 years later, this one a pristine mint-state broadstrike with the rim completely missing, giving the coin a strange, almost stretched-out appearance. In high grade, broad strikes are already desirable, but this particular coin had unusually sharp details, crisp fields, and the kind of visual appeal collectors fight over. The auction opened modestly, but by the end, the coin realized an incredible $126,500, one of the highest ever paid for a penny from the 1990s. It proved that collectors were willing to pay aggressively when rarity, condition, and visual impact come together in the right way. This price explosion turned the 1996 penny into a coin worth checking every time, especially if you're the type of person who still glances at your change before tossing it into a jar. What makes this penny so engaging is the realistic possibility of finding one. Unlike coins that were minted in the 1800s or early 1900s, coins most people will never see in circulation, the 1996 penny is still out there. Millions of them remain in jars, piggy banks, and dresser drawers across America. Error types that have been found on 1996 pennies vary, but each has become a valuable target. Doubling along the date and Liberty is one of the most popular, followed by doubling inside In God We Trust. Another known error shows a die crack traveling across Lincoln's bust, almost like a lightning strike frozen into metal. Some errors involve plating bubbles, where the zinc core pushed against the copper coating, creating tiny raised shapes that, if large enough and in clean condition, can dramatically increase the value of the coin. And of course, off-center strikes remain a collector favorite, especially those with 30% or more of the design missing, yet the date's still fully visible, which is crucial for value. Because the coin is from 1996, high grades are rare due to the softer metal composition. The zinc core pennies tend to corrode, spot, bubble, or discolor quickly unless stored under ideal conditions. That's why mint-state examples with strong luster and clean fields can reach incredible auction results. A perfectly preserved error on a zinc penny from the 90s is automatically something special, and collectors know it. One of the most exciting auction stories came from a small estate sale where a bag of mixed pennies was sold for just $5. Inside that bag was a 1996 off-center error penny with a bold 40% misstrike. The date was fully readable, the surfaces were surprisingly clean, and the error was dramatic enough to capture attention instantly. It was graded, submitted, and eventually sold for nearly $60,000, turning someone's $5 spontaneous purchase into one of the most profitable finds of their life. The rising popularity of social media has also brought more eyes to these rare coins. Videos showing people discovering unusual pennies have sparked curiosity in casual collectors and beginners who suddenly feel inspired to check their change more closely. And that's part of the excitement. These coins aren't locked away in museums or high-level private collections. They can be found in normal, everyday activity. You might have one right now without even realizing it. For anyone watching this, the key is to examine your coins carefully. Look for distortions in the text, uneven spacing, missing parts of the design, an unusually thick rim, a strangely thin border, or anything that looks out of place. Even small errors can carry surprising value if the coin is clean and original. But major errors, the ones with dramatic visual impact, are the true jackpots. The 1996 Lincoln penny has become a reminder that history hides in plain sight. A penny that was meant to be one of billions, unnoticed and unremarkable, can suddenly represent an extraordinary moment of human error that collectors now celebrate. And as long as more examples continue to surface, and they will, its reputation will keep growing. For some, collecting coins is a hobby. For others, it's an investment. But for many, it's a treasure hunt. And treasures don't always shine the brightest. Sometimes, they look like a single penny that doesn't quite match the rest, so the next time you empty your pockets, buy a drink, pay for groceries, or pick up loose change from your car floor, look a little closer. Because among billions of ordinary 1996 pennies, the rare error hiding in your hand could be the one worth tens of thousands of dollars, or even climbing towards six-figure territory, just like the examples that shocked collectors at auction. And all it takes to change your luck is a second glance at a coin you might have ignored. When you hold a simple penny in your hand, you rarely imagine that it could be worth more than a luxury car or even a down payment on a house. But every now and then, a coin slips out of the US Mint with something unusual, something that collectors chase with incredible passion. And the 2006 Lincoln 1-cent penny error coin is one of those unexpected treasures hiding right under people's noses. It looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, but inside that thin metal disc hides a story of rarity, mystery, and surprising value, with some examples selling for between $83,750 and $104,200 when the error is dramatic enough and the condition exceptional. The journey of this coin begins in a year that most people don't associate with rare pennies. By 2006, billions of Lincoln cents were being produced, and the design was already one of the most familiar in the country. Abraham Lincoln's portrait had been on the penny since 1909, and the memorial reverse had been in circulation since 1959. Nothing about 2006 should have stood out. But that's the beauty of rare coins. They stand out precisely because no one expects them to. During the minting process, mistakes do not happen often, not by modern standards, but when they do, every tiny mechanical failure or unexpected misalignment creates a coin that breaks the pattern. Some 2006 pennies came out with double dies, off-center strikes, die breaks, broad strikes, and even plating issues that caused strange colors or textures. What makes these errors valuable is not just that they exist, but that they survived. A surprising number of mint mistakes are discovered and destroyed before they ever reach the public. But here, a few slip through, ending up in pockets, coin jars, cash registers, and drawers across America. Imagine someone grabbing change from a gas station in 2006 without the slightest idea they might be holding a future five-figure collectible. It makes you wonder how many of these pennies are still hiding in old jars, junk drawers, or coffee cans filled with loose change. It makes collectors rethink every basic-looking penny they come across, because the key to the truly rare ones is not in flashy color or some dramatic misprint. Many valuable 2006 error cents look normal unless you examine them closely under good lighting or a magnifying glass point. One of the most desirable versions is the off-center strike error. In these, the coin is struck with part of the design missing, sometimes 5%, sometimes 10%, and the most valuable ones showing dramatic off-center pressure but still keeping the full date visible. A 2006 penny struck around 30% off-center once sold in a specialist auction for over $12,000 simply because the date remained intact and the strike was exceptionally clean. But it wasn't even the highest sale. Coins with multiple simultaneous errors, like off-center strikes combined with broad strikes, have crossed $20,000 or more depending on condition and grading. Then there are die break errors, sometimes called cuds, where a piece of the die cracks or breaks off, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin itself. Some 2006 cents show extreme die breaks that stretch across Lincoln's portrait or across the memorial building on the reverse. These can fetch extraordinary prices from collectors who love dramatic, visually bold errors. A massive cud on a 2006 penny sold for over $7,800 at an online auction simply because of its unusual shape and strong visual impact. But among the most sought after are the double die errors. These happen when a coin is struck more than once, slightly misaligned, creating doubled letters or numbers on the surface. The doubling on some 2006 pennies is subtle but visible under magnification, And the cleaner the doubling and the better the condition, the more collectors are willing to pay. A sharply doubled 2006 penny graded in mint state condition brought in nearly $18,400 at a heritage auction, lighting up the eyes of collectors because doubled dies from modern years are less common than they once were. Yet none of these auction numbers compare to the truly elite examples, the coins with multiple dramatic errors, preserved flawlessly in mint state condition, sometimes appearing almost surreal in how distorted yet detailed they are. These are the ones that push the value into that jaw-dropping territory above $83,750 and reaching well past the $100,000 line when the error is one of a kind. That is why collectors stay alert. A coin purchased for $1 or discovered in a handful of change could be worth more than a luxury pickup truck. The real turning point in people's understanding of the 2006 era penny came when a collector in the Midwest submitted a strange-looking coin to a major grading company. The coin showed a wild misalignment, partial blockage, and evidence that it had been struck more than once in the press. It looked like the mint machinery had jammed, struck the coin in a sideways orientation, then pressed it again while the metal was slipping. The result was a visually shocking coin that stunned both the grader and the collector. When it went to auction, it sold for a price no one expected, over $94,000. The buzz spread across the numismatic world. Suddenly, everyone was looking at their 2006 pennies with renewed interest. But the excitement doesn't stop at big auctions. Even smaller sales show impressive results. A minor broadstrike error in high mint state condition sold for $2,500. Another coin with just a slight off-center shift and strong luster sold for $1,800. These may not be headline-grabbing prices, but they prove a powerful truth. Error coins hold value even at modest levels, and almost any unusual detail can catch the attention of the right collector. People sometimes ask, why would anyone pay so much for a mistake? The answer lies in rarity and uniqueness. A normal penny tells us nothing special. But a penny born in a moment of mechanical chaos inside the U.S. Mint captures a split-second accident frozen in metal forever. It becomes art, history, and rarity all in one. And the fewer there are, the higher the demand climbs. The 2006 Lincoln cent continues to surprise collectors because new varieties appear every few years. Someone finds a strange die clash. Another finds a coin missing part of its copper plating. Another finds an unusually thick planchet error. Each discovery fuels curiosity and pushes people to check their old change again. Anyone can participate in the search: kids, adults, long-time collectors, first-time hobbyists. It's a treasure hunt hiding in plain sight. Imagine flipping through your own coin jar and spotting something slightly off. Maybe Lincoln's portrait looks shifted. Maybe a letter looks doubled. Maybe the rim is thicker on one side. Maybe a strange raised line runs across the coin. That tiny detail could be the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth thousands of dollars. The possibility alone keeps collectors looking, keeps buyers bidding, and keeps the world of numismatics full of excitement. The story of the 2006 penny is a reminder that rarity doesn't always come from age. It comes from uniqueness. And when uniqueness meets desirability, the value climbs fast. Even today, collectors are willing to pay huge amounts for the cleanest, sharpest, most dramatic error examples, especially those that fall into that extraordinary range between $83,750 and $104, $200. So the next time you see a 2006 penny, don't overlook it. Don't toss it aside. Don't assume it's worthless. Look closely. Tilt it under the light. Inspect the edges. Check the date alignment. Because somewhere out there, another valuable error penny is still hiding in everyday circulation, waiting for the right person to realize it's far more than loose change. And that discovery could turn an ordinary day into an unforgettable one.